I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Attorney Brown.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. We'll request a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of pending or potential litigation, personnel, and real estate.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, voting? We are voting.
That motion carries with Mr. Franum out.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now moving to executive session. Thank you. But
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Commissioners, we'll request a motion to execute the closed meeting affidavit.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Voting.
Wait a minute. Mr. Williams?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Now we're moving over to committee meetings. Commissioner Frantham, you're up, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to call public services to order, please. Ms. Bonner, is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We have one request for an addendum.
Okay. No idea.
Mayor's your request.
Can we put this up on the screen as well, please, for the people?
This is gonna be an easy one. This is gonna be an easy one, Mr. Chairman. Once he puts up on the screen, this will be very.
Have you
easy.
had this conversation with department head about this, Mayor?
I did, and that's why if we put it on the screen, if it's needed, it will be very easy to resolve.
Okay. Is committee, are you good with adding this to the agenda? No. Okay. All right. With that, we added the addendum agenda item that we'll discuss here in just a second. If there's no questions from the colleagues, we'd like to consent the following agenda items and delete the following. I'm sorry?
Let me. Didn't realize where we were going. Yes, sir.
Okay, we're going to consent the following agenda items: number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. We're also going to delete number 9, as we talked about it last week, and number 11, as it's not ready for prime time yet. So deleting 9 and 11, consenting 5, 6, 7, and 8. Can I get a motion to that effect, please?
Who was
Got a
that?
motion and a
I'm sorry.
second by Commissioner Guilfoyle, Commissioner Bobby Williams, and Commissioner Wayne Guilfoyle seconded. Voting, please, committee.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Ms. Walton, if we can start on agenda item number 1, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We have 4 items before you today. The first one is a new ownership and existing location, alcohol number 23-06. It's a request by Lavorsi Scott for a retail packaged beer and wine license to be used in connection with Second Peach, Inc., located at 1342 Gordon Highway. This application has been approved by Planning and Development and the Sheriff's Office. Do we have any objectors to this alcohol petition?
None noted. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Lavorsi L. Scott, 4013 Miners Lane, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180.
Can I get a motion? Got a motion and a second from District 10. Voting, please.
It's unanimous.
Agenda item number 2, please.
It's a new ownership, existing location, alcohol number 23-07, a request by Lavorsi Scott for a retail packaged beer and wine license to be used in connection with Peach First Corp., located at 1499 Gordon Highway. This application has been approved by Planning and Development and the Sheriff's Office. Do we have any objectors?
None noted. Please state your address one more time for me, please, and then we'll.
4013 Miners Lane, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180.
Thank you. Got a motion. Can I get a second, please? Second. Got a motion and a second. Voting, please, on agenda item number 2.
It's unanimous.
Agenda item number 3, please.
It's a new ownership, existing location, alcohol number 23-08. A request by David Hopkins for a Nanu Distillery license to be used in connection with Second City Distillery located at number 4 8th Street. This application has been approved by the Sheriff's Office and Planning and Development. Do we have any objectors?
None noted. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
David Hopkins, 435 Cambridge Circle, Augusta, Georgia, 30907.
Thank you. Can I get a motion? Got a motion. Can I get a second? Got a motion and a second. Voting, please.
It's unanimous.
Agenda item number 4, please.
Our last item is an existing location, alcohol number 23-09. It's a request by Jennifer Marshall for an on-premise consumption liquor and beer license to be used in connection with K&J Soul Bar and Grill, located at 720 East Robinson Avenue, Suite 101 and 102. There will be Sunday sales at this location. This application has been approved by the Sheriff's Office and Planning and Development. Do we have any objectors?
None noted. Please state your name and address for the record. Into the mic, please.
Jennifer Marshall, 2015 Hatton Court, Augusta, Georgia.
Got a motion? Can I get a second, please? Got a motion and a second. Voting, please.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Agenda item number 10, Ms. Bonner.
Item 10 is to discuss maintenance and repair of the boathouse.
Commissioner Pulliam.
Thank you, Chairman Franton. My questions are for the Attorney Brown. As it pertains to the contract for the boathouse, in the lease agreement, and I just want to bring clarity because I know we've brought this to the floor a few times, but I want as much clarity as possible. With the lease agreement dated for July 17th, 1996, is Augusta Rowing Club responsible financially, in whole or in part, for needed repairs to the boathouse?
The provisions of the lease foresees that the repairs and maintenance of the boathouse, for the most part, belongs to the lessee, which is the Rowing Club.
And my reason for asking this is because I do know that we are in the process of getting quotes for the boathouse, and we're trying to figure out, how much it's going to cost for all of the repairs to the boathouse. So with that being said, Attorney Brown, what portion, according to our lease, what portion, if any, is Augusta-Richmond County responsible for as it pertains to repairs to the boathouse and fees for estimates for the said repairs based on that lease agreement?
Commissioner Pulliam, the lease does not hold Augusta responsible for such repairs, and of course, whatever estimates to be gotten are not binding on Augusta.
Thank you.
You good? Commissioner
Yes, sir.
Guilfoyle?
I'm good. I just wanted clarity on that because, again, we're having those discussions back and forth, and I want to know who's responsible financially.
Okay. Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for the attorney as well. Attorney Brown, when we look at the lease is required to maintain, and usually it's on the inside of the building that they are responsible for, nothing on the exterior. But on the rowing club, the above use of the boathouse, which was a restaurant, a sitting area, the deck itself, has the responsibility of Augusta-Richmond County. Would that be correct?
Normally, that would be.
Okay. Normally, are we responsible for everything above the rowing club uses? They use the garage part, the first floor, river level. office, and they stored their boats, etc., up underneath the deck part. So everything above it's Augusta-Richmond County's responsibility.
Well, for some reason, the lease provides that, and I quote, "Lessee shall make such repairs, additions, and other alterations as deemed, that may be deemed necessary for the safety and the preservation of the restaurant building and any other improvements on the leased property." That's not a customary provision you will find in a lease, but in this particular lease, that's what the Roaring Club agreed to do.
Okay, so with the water leak that we had, pipe bursting during this little ice age thing we had a couple months back, is that the Rowan Club's responsibility that the above building flooded and caused a lot of damage? Help me out with this picture, because we pointing fingers by the wording in a document, but Augusta holds responsibility as well.
Augusta, I believe, has some responsibility in the boathouse. The problem you have here, and I'm not sure who prepared this agreement some 30 years ago, but it states that lessee shall be obligated to make all repairs, including repairs to the roof, downspout, and structural members of the leased property. Normally, that would be a lessor's responsibility, but in this lease, the lessees agreed to be responsible and obligated for those extraordinary repairs. I will add that although the lessee assumed these responsibilities, the lease does not prevent Augusta from assuming some of those responsibilities. Augusta could make these repairs if it so desired.
So whatever the tenant does above the building is still the responsibility of the leasee, in other words. So the water damage that we had a couple months back, that we should get the Rowan Club to pay for as well?
That would be a policy decision that the commission will have to make. It does provide in the lease, the commission could go to the lessee and require them to execute the responsibilities they agreed upon. However, it may not be the will of this body to place that burden or enforce that provision. There's nothing in the lease that stops Augusta from doing repairs to this property. It also provides that Augusta at all times with reasonable notice had a right to inspect this property. But the lease turns around and says that Augusta is not obligated to inspect the property.
Within that same documentation that Ms. Pulliam had presented 2 weeks ago, there was actually a contract for the Rowan Club to purchase the boathouse. Did you see that in there?
For the Roaring Club to purchase the boathouse?
Yes, there was a purchase contract in there. Ms. Pulliam, you still have your docs on that? I'll tell you what, Mr. Brown. I'm just going off memory here. I'm going to put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now so we could further this discussion.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
Commissioner Bobby Williams.
Yes, sir. May I have Mr. McDowell up, please?
Sure. Director McDowell? Come.
And I'm going to question him just a little bit, but I think we need to make a decision on the boathouse. I know the attorney has some other things that they're doing at this point in time, but if it is deemed so, and I don't want to go any further with that, but Mr. McDowell, in your estimate, and I know you probably haven't had anybody to look at it officially, but in your estimate, how much money is it going to take if we go the route of fixing the boathouse?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I would probably defer that question over to Central Service, who actually was working on that project
he
early on.
Lampkin.
He's got to get Brigham done.
I think they'd be better suited to respond intelligently to that question.
All right.
Let's just realize there's a lot of information flowing here, and we're gonna have this back in front of us in 2 weeks. So,
Okay.
go.
Well, in the short version, right now with the water damage that was being discussed, we have a quote right now to get the restoration and the cleanup done for about $168,000 just for that, which is probably more now because we hadn't moved on that one. And then back in 2019, we have a quote for the pillars and up under the boathouse to be done. That runs about $780,000, but that was a 2019 quote. So you're probably looking at another $1 million on that at this point with today's prices.
Okay, so in total, what, about $2 million?
Yeah, roughly between 2.5 million to get it back up and running like it should.
Is there anything that needs to be done inside with painting or what?
Right, at this
Have
point,
you
it
inside?
would be wise to upgrade the insides and do some work in there, especially with the flooring because of the water damage that was done.
Okay, so would 2 million do it, or you think a little more than 2 million?
I would say I would at least do 2.5, maybe even 3 at this point.
Okay, Mr. McDowell, I think you said you had about 600,000 already?
In SPLOST 7, there's about 580,000 for the boathouse. Any type of project that we do there, but it's 580,000 at this point.
At this point in time? Okay, we'll get back with you. Go ahead, sir.
The decking around the boathouse also needs to be redone, so we got a quote on that. Part of that decking will be fixed during this train project because the new HVAC will be going in. So you do have a lot of work that needs to be done.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's important we put all this together for the commissioners, and we don't try to make a hasty decision. Are you good, Commissioner? You good? Okay. Commissioner Mason.
All right, don't go anywhere. Just stay right there just for a minute. I'm hearing a lot of different things about repairs and things that need to be done and costs. And then on the flip side, I'm hearing maybe we're getting some sort of quotes to sell the property. Is that what I heard? What do you mean? No, I thought I heard.
I mean, I heard some. I don't know where she was referring.
That was,
Somebody said something about
Mr.
quotes.
Chairman, that
Come
was
on now.
Mr. Mason, that was a contract from, I guess, back in the 80s. That was presented to us within that package that Ms. Pullum had give out.
Okay. Okay, so let me just be clear here. There are no quotes being had at this time for the boathouse. Is that correct?
As far as selling it, I have no idea. I have quotes for repairs that need to be done.
No, we're talking.
This body, no, there's not.
Selling another property.
There is not.
I need to hear from. Is that your understanding?
That's clearly my understanding. I'm not sure where you received that about someone having quotes to sell the facility.
Well,
That hasn't-
it appears the fact of the matter, since we don't. Clearly, it sounds like we don't own it. Could the rowing club possibly be taking quotes for the property?
That'd have to be a question you ask Rowing Club, but not to my knowledge.
Okay, so I realize coming back in a couple of weeks, clearly there's a lot of information that needs to, good, clear, concise, truthful information that needs to come back before this commission so that we can get a clear understanding. Number one, do we own it or don't we? First and foremost. Secondly, who's responsible for the repairs? Who are we going to hold responsible? Is it going to be the city? Is it going to be the rowing club? Who is it going to be? We need some specifics on this. What are the costs? I understand we have some 2019 costs, but what are the costs? Which direction are we going in, or are we going to keep kicking this can down the road? We need to have some clear, concise method of which way we're going, what the cost is going to be, and where is the money coming from? A tagline, a fund site, what have you, that's going to be able to take care of what we can take care of. Again, this has the potential to be a crown jewel, the potential to be the crown jewel if everything is done correctly for property on the river for our city. But first and foremost, we've got to understand who owns the doggone thing. Who owns it? And after all this time, and the way that it sounds like it's written up some 30 years ago, like most of what kind of goes on, it's a lot of confusion. And you can kind of go in either way, and that's no way to run a business when there's certainly no way to run a government. So I'm hoping that when you come back in a couple of weeks, you'll have some good information. Who owns it? Who's going to be responsible for the repairs? When is it going to get done? What is the plan that we have in place? Courses of action, plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G if we need to, and where are the funds coming from? Those are just some of the things that I would like to be addressed in the next, couple of weeks, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. If it has to wait that long, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pulliam.
Thank you so much. Just for a point of clarity, I did not present the agreement when the Augusta Rowing Club came before this body. Okay. They actually, the lease was attached along with that, so I asked for that information, but it wasn't my presentation. It was once I started looking through the lease that I found the information, and I did disseminate that information amongst our body according to the numbers that I was looking at in the lease, which was number 17 and number 28. So I just wanted to add that as a point of clarity. That's why I started asking questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Bobby Williams.
Yes, sir. I just want to make one request, and that is that I know you got a lot of estimates for what have you, but we need a total estimate because, you know, I may next week ask for 2.5. They can turn it down. They can turn it up or whatever. Right. So, but we need to know what we're dealing with. Okay.
Yeah, we can have a solid number. That's not an issue. The issue, we were still waiting on some clarity about who was responsible before we put something together. Right.
Okay, Commissioner Guilfoyle, wrap this up.
I will. This is for Ms. Bonner. Ms. Bonner, do you have a copy of what was handed out to the commissioners? And I was wrong. I thought Ms. Pulliam gave it to us, and it was not. So do you happen to have a copy? I'd rather for all of us to have the same documents so we can look at the same thing in 2 weeks.
Well, I would have to go back through the papers from last commission meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding this, and if I do, you would like me to share it with the entire
yes,
body?
Ma'am, as well as the attorney.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner McKnight.
Okay, about 2 years ago, I remember with the boathouse that we had a potential buyer, and it was discussed, and the commission didn't want to make any move on it. So wouldn't that mean that the commission is responsible for the upkeep? If we said no 2 years ago to a potential buyer, wouldn't that mean that we are responsible for the upkeep of that building?
Attorney Brown.
Not as to a lease between Augusta and the boathouse, the answer would be no. The fact that if the commission owns it, not the commission, if Augusta owns a building, it could go out and look for a buyer. It doesn't tell you what the relationship is between a present tenant and the owner.
Okay. Can I get a motion to receive his information? Got a motion second. Voting, please.
It's unanimous.
Ms. Byron, if we can go to addendum, agenda item.
Okay.
We can put it up on the screen so that. I'd like to put the front.
The
front.
The one where the communication to the mayor.
Yep.
On the back here. Okay.
Or either one, actually, I guess.
Yes, thank you.
Do you want to read it?
Yes.
Okay.
The mayor would like to request an addendum item to add to Tuesday's meeting. A local hospitality business would like to request an exception to operate on the Sunday prior to Masters and Masters Sunday.
Okay, Mayor, if you can speak to this.
Yes, sir, I certainly can. So I received a call and in a meeting request from a local business. It's a cigar bar. who, as you know, Cigars and Masters is synonymous. He requested that they be able to operate on the Sunday prior to Masters and Masters Sunday. He also mentioned that they are granted only one exception throughout the year to operate on Sunday. Prior to this meeting, I was informed by Ms. Delaney that that is a state law and it is outside of our local jurisdiction. So unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do to help him to be open. So I would assume at this point, there's nothing that we could consider unless Attorney Brown or Administrator Dowse, there's anything that you know that could perhaps help these businesses as they try to operate and earn extra income for our community during Masters Week that could be beneficial to them. But outside of that, I think it's outside our control.
You would be correct.
No, sir. It has, as I referred you to Director Delaney, the planning laws and laws associated with the sale of alcohol is regulated by the state, and we cannot make a one-off exception. We do not have that ability, even though we know the Masters is a very good economic development activity for the city of Augusta. There are plenty of exceptions or leeways that the planning department does make for a lot of vendors. It's not that the city is not open and allow a lot of activities by restaurants, sidewalk restaurants, expansion to outside. So there are plenty relaxing of laws. However, the planning department believes at this time that this particular request cannot be granted by the city of Augusta.
Thank you, Attorney Brown.
Okay.
Chairman?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, and just for clarity for the general public, we vote as a body in, I think, December every year for the one Sunday per year, and it's always Super Bowl Sunday, it seems to fall. So that is the one day that they can sell alcohol, for the one exception for the state, from a state law perspective. All right, can I just get a motion to receive his information then? Got a motion, can I get a second? Got a motion and a second, voting please.
It's unanimous.
And that concludes public services. Thank you, committee.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, we have a request.
Okay. Okay. Where's this come from? We're going to go ahead and call the Finance Committee to order. There is an addendum coming before us, so we'll take a minute and take a look at that.
Yes, sir.
Is there any opposition to adding this to the Finance Committee agenda? All right, we'll do it without objection. All right, let's also add to the consent agenda item number 3. All right.
Item number 3 is the consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. And also item number 4. Excuse me.
Number 4, okay.
Items 3 and 4.
Okay, you have.
Is there a motion? I'll second. There's a motion and a second. Voting. All right, let's go to the addendum item first, Ms. Bonner.
Addendum item is a request of the Irish American Heritage Society Vibrant Community and Cultural Outreach by waiving security fees associated with the 45th Annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. This is requested by the Mayor's Office.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask Mr. Sean Mooney to come over here. The reason for this request is I was approached by the Augusta Irish American Heritage Society. As you know, our annual St. Patrick's Day Parade draws probably one of the biggest crowds to our downtown. And it's a huge economic boon, not only for our city, but for many of the businesses that operate on that day. For the next 2 years, this event will be held on Fridays. So the first is coming up on March 17th. Next year, St. Patrick's Day falls on a Saturday or Sunday. I think they're going to observe it on a Friday. So this presents a great opportunity for our downtown businesses to make money, as well as our public, the general public, to partake. And Mr. Mooney, I'm going to let you make the ask that you were asking us to do, and we'll follow up after then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sean Mooney, 3307 Andover Lane. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I am joined today by our parade chairman, Tyler Sneed. As a board member and a representative of the Irish American Heritage Society and its 500-plus active community members, I'm here today to respectfully request your support in waiving the mandatory security fees associated with hiring 24 special shifts police officers for our upcoming St. Patrick's Day Parade. In 1978, we formally chartered our society and have organized, facilitated, and privately funded the St. Patrick's Day Parade every year for 45 years. Second only to Savannah in the state of Georgia, the parade has become a beloved tradition in Augusta, drawing visitors from all over the Southeast and beyond. I myself will have guests from Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, Arizona, Canada, and Ireland this year. Our St. Patrick's Day Parade is also one of the largest city cultural programs, and we are committed to promoting and celebrating our Irish heritage and the cultural diversity that makes Augusta great. Our parade route of Telfair, 11th, and Broad Street is comprised of small, predominantly independent businesses that see a significant increase in sales on parade day. Especially as these businesses emerge from the challenging times of the pandemic, the economic impact generated by the St. Patrick's Day Parade should not be overlooked. In fact, we have informally surveyed many of these businesses, and the average increase in sales during the parade hovers around 379% increase. Beyond the economic impact, the parade is an opportunity for people from diverse backgrounds to come together and enjoy a day of festivities and fun. While we understand and certainly respect the importance of providing a safe and secure parade route, we seek the city's assistance in covering the required officers' costs to continue promoting and celebrating our cultural heritage in Augusta. We are committed to working closely with the Richmond County Sheriff's Office to ensure that all necessary measures are taken to guarantee the safety of all participants and spectators. As the parade grows each year, so do the associated costs. Last year's parade boasted over 120 floats, vehicles, walking groups, and marching bands. And while we have worked hard to keep up with this growth, the cost of hiring 24 special shifts is becoming increasingly prohibitive for our organization. While we believe in a shared responsibility between our society and the city, and we are hopeful that the city can partner with us in this small but significant way by easing the financial burden of providing the necessary security measures for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. If the city were to provide this law enforcement service free of charge, we could allocate the total costs of nearly $3,520 towards promoting and celebrating our Irish heritage through scholarships for local students, cultural events, and community outreach programs. In conclusion, we respectfully request that you consider waiving the mandatory fees associated with hiring these off-duty police officers. Your support will help us to continue the beloved tradition and provide much-needed economic stimulus for our city. We thank you for your time and your consideration, and we welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. What is that ask? What's the dollar amount that you're asking?
Mr. Mayor, if I can jump in here, please. There's only one chance I get to tell the mayor that I run the meeting, but I recognize the mayor for comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Mr. Mooney, can you just clarify that ask?
Yes.
The financial ask. Thank you.
We're looking for the city to cover the costs, which are $3,520 for the security of the parade.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. Mr. Chairman, I'll humbly submit back to the chair.
Okay, so Mr. Mooney, you're asking for us to cover $3,520 for security fees.
Yes, sir.
All right, there's a motion. We have Mr. Williams, Bobby Williams.
Yes, sir, and this will go to the administrator because, one, have we done this in the past? I'm with you, Mr. Mooney, really. Have we done this in the past? And I'm asking this question because when we tried to have the parade and ceremony for the kids who won the state championship, I had to find funding to pay for our officers. So I don't know, this hadn't been done before. if I'm not mistaken, right?
Is that a question to me?
Juneteenth?
No, we didn't do that for Juneteenth. We didn't.
So, Madam Administrator, so have we paid for any parades, security officers, or what have you?
Commissioner, I'm not certain. I would rather us direct that question to our finance department. Hopefully they would know the answer, or maybe Ms. Bonner, but I'm not certain.
Is Donna
Ms.
Williams
Donna,
here?
come on up, please.
So have we done this before, or, I mean, is there any legal way we can do this?
Well, the fees for the off-duty officers and the number of off-duty officers, that's strictly under control of the sheriff's department. So
But the question is.
so you couldn't waive the fees.
Yeah.
So what you would be looking for is to pay an appropriation to this organization so that they in turn could cover these fees. Now, right off the top of my head, and I'm going to look at Ms. Bonner because her memory is superlative, I don't remember us covering the cost of off-duty officers for various parades, and we have a lot of parades, so I would request that you proceed cautiously.
And Mr. Mooney, I say this because I want to do it at the same time. Sometimes when you do something, you open up a box and a lot of people come through because you've done it for one. I'm really, I like to hear from some of the other people here on the panel, because once we do it, everybody's going to be coming to ask to do that. We've never done it before. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Commissioner, we're going to recognize Commissioner from the 10th, Mr. Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the past, we have people come before us with the tax, with the property tax that we waive, and that just happened not too month ago. We have waived our recreational employees for venues on the commons. Yeah, I understand that this is a sheriff's department issue, but you got to look at what the economic impact that the Irish community does for this area as far as the parades. I mean, they actually make it happen for downtown, and that brings in a lot of revenue for our local vendors. I mean, so you have to kind of justify, what do you want to put the value at? Do you want to have quality of life programs here in place, or you just want to say it, whatever we want to do? My choice is to, we're going to have the Band of Brothers coming before us in a couple weeks, asking for the same thing. We're going to have to set a precedence one way or another, but I'm in favor of it. I'm in favor of keeping the people, to give them something to do downtown. The parade invites a lot of the kids. That's you can't get any other program besides Arts and the Hearts Festival, etc., to come downtown and enjoy it with their parents. I mean, how do you put a value on that? But Mr. Johnson, I appreciate it. Mr. Williams, thank you for asking us our inputs.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bonner, I'm going to ask you, last year, did we not support Juneteenth and more than just from a Parks and Rec standpoint on this diocese up here with the Band of Brothers? And then apparently, I guess we didn't fulfill our obligation, is what I've been told. But did we not support something like this last year?
You supported their event on the Common to help with security through recreation on the Commons.
Okay.
But it was not for the parade.
Okay.
And the officers, because that's a sheriff's department decision.
But we supported the event, is my point, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yes,
it's the
sir.
same thing, and Band of Brothers are coming. I just I think there's, and I know this does open us up to support other things, but I look at the Parks and Recs department. They support a lot of events through tents and different things as well. That there might not be a monetary dollar value, but there's support that we give other events as well. So I'm hoping this will pass, because I think it's the right thing to do from an economic development standpoint, and I think, again, we have another one that's coming very soon. I had a meeting with them that I think we need to support as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 3rd, Commissioner McKnight.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to piggyback off of what my colleagues just said, District 10 Commissioner Guilfoyle and District 7 Commissioner Franham. This does bring a lot of money to downtown. There are so many people that tell me, and I'm sure others up here, how much the St. Patrick's Day Parade means to the children and people all around, and I do hope that my colleagues will support this. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 5th.
Thank you, sir. It's not a matter of whether or not you want to support it. You know, I'll vote for it. It's just that we need to understand that once we open the door, because I'm being told Juneteenth people, Juneteenth people will be here next week, and they're not just asking for air. They're going to be asking for money also. Some other folks have got some other folks coming. I just want us to realize that once we vote this up, and you get the Juneteenth people in here next week, we don't need to be talking about and hesitating. You did it for one, you need to do it for everybody. And I think Commissioner Guilfoyle, said that, somebody else, he named somebody else that's coming. It's just that once you open up the door is open.
Don't badger.
So I support this, but we need to make sure that we watch how we do these things. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 4th, Mr. Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly realize the importance of St. Patrick's Day here in Augusta, Richmond County, for decades for that matter. And so there's no concern about the effect or that it has on the community. But what I am concerned with it, and I just popped back in, maybe I missed it, how do you waive security fees that is a part of the sheriff's area? How do you do that?
Mr. Mason, we wouldn't be waiving those fees. We would be making a donation to the society to pay for those fees.
Who is we?
The city. That's what
that's what I would. Yeah, that's what I said. I guess I missed that. So
that's what the ask is.
I guess the key here is never step out in the middle of a discussion, right? So the city will be making a donation. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that appropriate terminology, Mr. Our legal counsel?
I'm gonna go ahead and say it. It's probably, maybe it should come from the administrator.
Oh.
However, in order to maintain consistency and to avoid a legal action for violation of equal protection, I would think the city would want to standardize the amount of money it will place in the sheriff budget for each parade. Because if you fund this one fully, the next parade may cost twice as much. And then to have it equal, you have to fund that one fully. So the commission could decide for parades, we're going to place in the sheriff budget a certain dollar amount to go toward fulfilling the security fee for it. And if the organization goes above that, then they would be responsible for the remainder.
Okay, so here's a question, potential issue that I would have with that is you're mentioning simply parades, but people are going to be coming before us for things other than parades. So now what are we talking about? Talk to me. You can't put your mic up. You got to bring it back down. I got to hear from you.
My only point was that for similar activities, the only way you would avoid not knowing how much you're going to now have to budget for all these activities would be to have a standard amount budgeted for certain activities. It may not can be done today on the spot. I'm sure you want to consult finance and the administrator to look at these activities and what are you going to budget. If you do it one by one, I don't see much way that you are not going to run off the road sooner than later.
And I fully understand, and I think that's part of what my concern is at this particular point, because once you begin this process, and right now we're talking parades, what about those that come before us, like I hear next week, week after next, or next year, that is not a parade type activity, or if you say similar type activities, how are you defining that? And if you say a certain type of amount for similar type activities, what amount is that? And then I can go on and on and on. There's a number of different things that we probably won't get to today. So it's not that I want to deny or stall this under any circumstances, but I do clearly see a way where this can just get totally blown out of proportion. Any number of individuals out in the community can come forth with anything and look for some sort of assistance. And so we have to have some parameters, that's all I'm saying. We have to have some parameters, we have to have some finite numbers and of how to make this happen. So when is the St. Patrick's Day Parade?
March 17th.
So it's just a few weeks down the road, okay. Yeah. Well, at this point, well, I'm not on the committee, so you guys can make that determination. But what I do want to say is that more sooner than later, we need to address this from a holistic standpoint, to where whatever decisions that are made, that we have some sort of policy in place that's going to address this for future reference. Because trust and believe, more will be coming in the future. So. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the second. I'm sorry. I skipped the mayor. I'm so sorry, Mr. Mayor. Chair recognizes the mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Mooney, have you guys ever considered increasing the amount you charge for the entry into this parade? Because in my opinion, $3,800 is a small amount of money compared to the advantages that are given back to our business community and our restaurant operators.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and in fact, I appreciate the opportunity to expand a little bit. We do charge a parade entry fee. That is something that's new. Our philosophy with the Irish American Heritage Society is to not disrupt things completely. We like to make incremental changes. We have collected 32 entries thus far. We usually get about 120, and we have increased the fee to $25 this year. So we do offset the cost. I would like to point out, though, that earlier it was stated that if you cover the entire cost of the parade, I would like to point out that we do have significant other fees that we pay for this parade. This is but one line item that we're requesting from the city to partner on. We pay for sanitation, we pay for security barriers, we pay for our insurance, we pay for a lot of other things, and in total this parade costs about $15,000, sometimes $20,000. So we are looking at ways to partner, including we worked with the CVB to see if we would qualify for their tourism grant, but unfortunately, since we can't quantify how many hotel rooms we get, we're not quite there with them on that. And we've reached out to the Metro Chamber of Commerce as well to help see if they would sponsor, since we do have an impact on the business community downtown. We are working really hard to try and offset these costs, since it is a community service that we provide. And this was just one area where we felt like we could partner with the city and it would be in the correct vein.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Chair recognizes the commissioner from the second.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. In the same vein as, well, first I'd like to start off by saying, Mr. Mooney, I think it's great. I love the Irish Parade. I don't want to go on record saying that. But in the same vein with Commissioner Mason, I would like to see some type of discussion for standard applications, perhaps, that may have due dates. I don't know how we would work that process, but if we allocate a certain amount of funding for said events like those things, then I believe, that may help us when it comes to decisions like this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes the administrator.
Commissioner Johnson, I would like for you to allow me until next week to get with staff as well as review other line items in our budget that address economic development. I know that there are several considering that we give to NGOs for purposes that could assist in areas such as this, and that should provide you all with enough time to make an informed decision.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. That was going to be what I suggest, that we move this on to next week with no recommendation, to give you time to look over some things and to also give us an opportunity to have more discussion. So thank you for that. We'll take that as a form of a motion after I accept a couple more comments from my colleagues. Granted, they have motions. So we will, I'll recognize Commissioner from the 10th, Mr. Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean, as far as the your organization,
Irish American.
Yes, sir. Are y'all a 501(c)(3)?
We are, sir.
Okay. Whatever happens, whether it goes forward or not, I would be happy to donate my personal money towards it.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Well, since we've taken requests.
Yeah.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 9th.
Mr. Chairman, I motion to move to full commission without recommendation.
There's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Voting, Ms. Bonner.
Appreciate that echo. It's unanimous.
Thank you all very much.
All righty, Ms. Bonner, number 1.
Good meeting, Mr. Chairman.
We have more items, and these are probably going to be a little bit more interesting. Item number 1.
Public safety?
No, ma'am, we still have 2 more items.
Oh, you have number 1. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Item number 1 is a motion to approve funding of the operating capital encumbrance carryovers.
All right, Ms. Williams, Director Williams, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. Each year at approximately this time, about 60 or so days after the close of our fiscal year, we bring forward a listing of encumbrances and items that were budgeted in the prior year that either were not completed or are still in a phase of evaluation, but the funds were there to support them in the prior year. They just didn't completely materialize or get finished. So we bring that list forward to the commission so that the commission can reappropriate those funds to cover those projects that were still in a state of non-completion, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, so they didn't get finished. So this is the listing by fund. The smaller portion, as you can see, there's a couple of odds and ends, and they are attached as a listing with some general high-level explanations behind the agenda item. We would ask that you approve these, that a funding source has already been identified because it was in the prior year's budget. But it takes a commission action to carry these forward.
So moved.
Second. Or is there a second before I call for a second? Is there a second? Second. Okay. Motion for Mr. Guilfoyle, second for Ms. Scott. We have a question in the queue. Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Williams, when will we know the additional sales tax revenue that came in for 2022?
Additional, you mean the amounts over the budget?
Yeah.
We are preparing our fourth quarter update for you. It should be middle to the end of March to get you there.
It'll be on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it takes us a little longer to get fourth quarter because there is so much conversion that has to be done at the end of the year.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments from my colleagues before we take a vote? Hear none, there's a motion and a second. Voting.
It's unanimous.
Item number 2, Ms. Bonner.
2 is an update of fund balance policy and goals.
Director Williams.
Okay. A little bit of history on this is that our current fund balance policy was formally approved by the governing body in 2012. But in 2021, there was a workshop which was facilitated by GMA, and at that workshop, there was a proposed change or a change. There was no formal action taken on the floor to move the fund balance policy from what it was at 90 to 120 days up to 180 days. So the effect of that action would have immediately put this government out of compliance with their fiscal policy, because at the end of 2021, we were within the 90 to 120 days at approximately 103 days, but nowhere close to having 180 days worth of reserves. Just as to convert that into a dollar amount, moving up from where we were at a little over $40 million at 103 days to get us to 180 days would have required us to come up with approximately $35 million. It was an ambitious idea. It was a good idea to move our reserve target up. It may have been a little hasty in that I'm just going to say it may have been a little bit of a knee jerk, or we just got a little carried away with the discussion that was going on at the workshop. So we've since had some discussion on the floor about perhaps revisiting that kind of lofty goal and putting a little more teeth, a little bit more explanation into our current policy, that may have been a more prudent path of action. In December of 22, there was an item on the agenda to go forward to kind of flesh out a more streamlined, more detailed fund balance policy and to have some additional discussion. But as we all know, it was postponed. So we are here today with what is Finance's recommendation about where we should go with a fund balance policy and a cash reserve policy. So to kind of dive a little further into that, when we talk about fund balance, we're usually talking about the general fund and our special revenue funds. The accounting rules that relate to those types of funds, the fund balance very closely mirrors your cash reserves. When you get into accounting for your enterprise funds, retained earnings, and there are all sorts of non-cash items that get closed into your financial statements where your retained earnings fund balance is not necessarily reflective of the amount of cash on hand. So for those enterprise funds, we are recommending a cash reserve policy. Now, as we all know, anybody that's ever bought a t-shirt that's my size, one size fits all doesn't ever work for anybody. So what we have done with our recommendation, as we have looked at the needs and the requirements and the flows of revenue into each one of these funds, and so we have made a more tailored approach to some of these special revenue funds. Generally, when we talk about fund balance, it usually goes to the general fund. That's what always gets mentioned, is the amount of fund balance in the general fund. So for the general fund, we are recommending moving to a range of 120 days, setting that as the new minimum, with a range up to 150 days. To get you to 120 days would move us up to a little over $47 million in reserves from the 2021 level of about $41 million. So you've got to move up about $6 million to get you to the 120 range. To move on up to the upper end of that range in your general fund would put you much closer to about $60 million. But what this policy would do is to set that new range, 120 to 150. It also tells us how we should go about getting there. is that until we get to the targeted low end of the range, that we would start setting approximately $1 million aside in our budget cycle. This year, we started with that $1 million, but during the approval process for the 23 budget, that number was decreased slightly, and I believe we moved forward with something close to about $800,000. Didn't get hurt too bad, but we did set some aside to moving ourselves up with our long-term plan to eventually go for an increase in our bond rating. So this is all a part of our fiscal responsibility, our financial policies, and how we get from where we are to where we want to go. So that is the general fund portion of it. We've also delineated the other funds that are in here that we need to address as well. And I guess I'll stop talking now and ask if y'all got some questions.
All right, Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you. I'm not on this committee, so I can't make a motion towards action here, but I know that you've talked about our actions over the past few years of growing our reserves, and I think that is definitely a good thing. Question that's always stuck out to me is, where does this current 103, 104 days worth of cash sit? What bank's it in?
Most of it is in the state investment pool. What is known as Georgia Fund 1 is a very liquid pool. It is guaranteed by and insured by the state of Georgia. It is open to all governments to be able to invest their monies in that. It is a liquid investment pool, so that you earn both one of the most competitive rates of interest, but it is also available should you need to pull that cash out for a large expenditure.
I just asked a question because, we just never see balance sheets or anything like that, and it's just one of those questions that's always stuck out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Donna, how are you?
I'm good.
Great. As far as this 2021, it had to be approved by finance in order to move it up to 180 days. Would that be correct?
No, sir, it wasn't.
I'm sorry?
No, sir. That came out of a workshop. There are several folks sitting here that kind of know how that got bounced around. It was never formally adopted by this body on the floor, although it was referred to in an awful lot of documents that were put out since then.
Well, I know previously when we were audited, one of the big things that the auditor said is that we're going to have more in reserves for the rainy day fund such as this to increase our days of operation if we didn't take in any more money. Now, with us increased it from 2021 to now, where has the money been coming from? Did we increase our money that we was getting from these different departments, such as stormwater, airports, from the enterprise funds?
Okay. The way your fund balance accumulates in the very simplest version is your revenue over your expenditures that you took in the prior year. So you measure your fund balance at the end of the year. So right now, the last measure of our fund balance and an audited standpoint is from 2021, which was the approximately $40 million, which was equivalent to 103 days of operating expenditures in the general fund. It's about $397,000, $98,000 a day operating expenditures in the general fund.
As of right now, how many days do we have set aside?
Okay, you measure it once a year. You measure it at the end of each fiscal year.
Okay. As far as 2022, how many days do we have in reserve?
We don't have the audited remeasurement of that yet. I will be presenting you in March the revenue over expenditures, which should move that 103 days. That was the measurement at the end of 21. You should be able to get an updated unaudited report of that from me because we're still closing out 2022.
Do we know how much cash we have in there?
Yes, sir, I know how much cash you've got
Can
on
you
any given
express it?
day.
How much?
Sir, I shouldn't have said that I know, but we know. I can measure cash on any given day.
Right. So let's say if we reduce it from 180 days down to 150 days per year recommendation, excess of reserves could go into any of 5 different areas. Is that correct?
There are 5 different classifications for your financial
Right. Fund
reporting.
accrued liabilities, appropriate lower amount to outstanding general obligation bonds, one-time expenditures that do not increase reoccurring operating costs, startup expenditures for new programs, or property tax millage rate or charge service fee reduction.
Those are the yes, sir. Those are the recommendations per our policy, which is typical uses of fund balance. There's never any recommendation that you use fund balance for any ongoing expenditures. It's typically a one-time payment that it is used for.
All right, so if we had excess in there, since nobody knows the number, if, let's for sake, let's say if we had $5 extra million in that account, who determines where it goes into as far as the different items for the excess? Is it done by the body itself?
Okay, there are accounting principles that govern how it is classified. It is either unassigned fund balance or it is restricted fund balance. We rely very heavily on the Governmental Accounting Standards Board to determine how those need to be done. Right now, the $40 million is in what's called unassigned fund balance. That means that it is available for use at the discretion of the body should you have an unanticipated expenditure. I always go back to the ice storm. You knew exactly where I was going, Commissioner Frantham.
Donna, can you get us that number by next Tuesday as far as the amount of money we have and the amount of days that we have set aside?
I'm trying very hard to
That's all right.
explain that the measurement of that will be most accurate by me towards the middle to the end of March when I close 2022. You got me confused now. At 2021, it was 103 days. If your revenue exceeds your expenditures when we finish closing out the unaudited results for 22, which I can only completely start that closeout after 60 days, which is 2 days from now. So I will be presenting, as we normally do, the unaudited results from the prior fiscal year in March. At that point, I will convert that to the number of days balance and give you guys an update. I would anticipate that it is going to be higher than that 103 days. But you typically only measure your fund balance one time a year at the close of your fiscal year. And if I'm misunderstanding you, I completely apologize.
No, I don't think you are.
No.
Are you good, Mr. Guilfoyle? All right, thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 9th.
Mr. Chairman, I move that to approve.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Okay, there's a motion and a second, but we still have one more comment in the queue.
Yeah.
Commissioner Franham.
Mr. Chairman, would it be more prudent that we approve this once we know what happened at the end of 2022? I mean, she's not telling us that where we stand because she doesn't know. And why would we want to put any goals or policies in until we know what we're at the end of 2022?
Well, I don't think this is something new, Mr. Franham. I think this is as simple as an update on what we actually tasked. But I'll go to our administrator for further conversation.
Commissioner, the reason why this is important at this particular time is because the next agenda item speaks to a bond and fiscal health work session that this body has already consented to on March 20th at 2 p.m. Because we are already planning to go to the bond market for several of our SPLOST-related projects, having a clear understanding of what our fiscal position will be as it relates to our reserves will be key as we petition several interested parties when it relates to our bond funding. So because it was not finalized at the end of 2022, it's key that we have this discussion and that we finalize what this body looks to set our days on reserve to be prior to us going to the bond market, and preferably prior to us having the conversation with Davenport, who is our financial advisors. So although, as Ms. Williams just stated, she won't be able to give you a 2022 update until March, we do know that 2021 closed out with 103 days for general fund.
But my concern is she said between 120 and 150. Well, if you look at the chart of sales tax revenue and additional revenue, like it's gone up every year, we could be at 115 or something. I'm just guessing, but we could be at 115. So why would we set 120 as the baseline if we're at 115 because of 2022 is my point. Like, I believe that we shouldn't have this discussion. Why can't we hurry up and get these numbers, or at least give us an estimate, unaudited number, before we make this decision? Because in my mind, this isn't like a true accurate decision that we're making, because we don't know what we have in 2022. That's
Well, what we do know is the most recent number that was communicated as a result of the budget retreat in 2021 was 180
well, that
days.
was unrealistic. Shouldn't even, and we've already said that. That shouldn't, throw that out. Let's never say that number again.
So
that's unrealistic.
Because of that, the recommendation today is to give us a 120-day minimum with a goal of 150 days. So if you want to go with the 115, if that's the pleasure of the body, then so be it. But the timeliness of having a reserve policy set prior to us going before the bond market in the coming weeks, which March 20th is the meeting, is what's key.
And I respect that. I'll close on this, Mr. Chairman. The experience that we have in the finance department, we should be able to know this number, in my mind, before we sit up here and make this decision next Tuesday, where that number is.
So
thank you.
Today, the number is 103 days.
Including 2022. We should be able to know that number. They should be able to give us an estimate on this floor.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. Thank you, Mr. Franham. There's a motion and a second voting.
That motion carries 3-1, with Mr. Guilfoyle voting no.
Thank you, Director Williams, and I believe that concludes the Finance Committee.
Yes, sir.
All righty, thank you all.
All right. I'd like to call Public Safety to order. Ms. Bonner, are there any additions or deletions?
No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Will we have one?
Number 1 is not supposed to be on there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We emailed about this.
I've been out sick for the last couple of days, sir, and had a chance to go through.
All
So can you present what you were wanting us to just delete this?
Yeah,
Okay.
remember we moved the date to March 14th?
So we're moving to March 14th and deleting the item today?
Moving it to the meeting on the 14th, okay.
Okay. All right. If it's okay with my colleagues, I'd like to consent item number 2. I don't see 3 on here.
So moved.
I got it, okay. Motion and a second. Voting, right? Let's go.
It's unanimous.
All right, thank you. That concludes Public Safety. Quickest committee meeting yet.
Good afternoon, Madam Clerk.
Yes, ma'am.
Calling Administrative Service to order. Do we have any addition or deletion?
No, ma'am.
Okay. If it's okay with my colleagues, I would like to consent number 1 and number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Voting, Ms. Bonner?
Yes, ma'am. It's unanimous.
Okay. We'll go with number 3, item number 3.
Item number 3 is to receive as information a presentation from the interim administrator titled "A Year in Review."
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. I am pleased to present Augusta, Georgia's 2022 annual report. This document, each of you should have a copy of it at your station today, as well as we have several copies for those in the audience. It is designed to highlight the city's activities, progress, and accomplishments over this last year. From ribbon cuttings to growing our local film industry, 2022 offered a glimpse of the tremendous momentum that Augusta is building. While this publication is not at all inclusive of our efforts, it is to be commended. I want to take this time to thank this body, as well as our department directors, our staff, and all of Augusta's employees for their contributions to our accomplishments in the year of 2022. I would hope that each of you, as well as those listening in, would take great pride and pleasure in all that this city has able to come together. And I look forward to what 2023 brings to Augusta, Georgia. Commissioner Scott, I ask that this document be received as information, and of course, I'm available to field any questions that you may have.
So moved.
Second.
Voting.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Item number 4.
Item number 4 is to discuss policy and procedures as it pertains to amending and changing the current charter for Augusta Richmond County. If change to charter has been petitioned for discussion steps for starting a sub-study committee that is reflective of the citizens of Augusta Richmond County, getting Carl Vinson Institute of Government or a similar institution that is able to conduct a neutral study involved for guidance in the matter and conduct a series of charrettes. Commissioner Pulliam.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Recently, there was a bill, SB 231, that is going through Senate and then, through the House as well, however it moves. It is my desire to start a discussion as well as put in place some steps so that we can, in fact, inform our citizens about what this change to the charter means. And if any other changes are brought about or the bill takes different shapes and forms as it moves through the House, just letting our citizens be a part of this. We know that the last charter change took place in 1996. So here we are, 2023. So that's been quite some time. And I know other cities and counties in Georgia have been going through similar things. The people of Augusta are those that are going to be voting on this. So it is our duty, in my opinion, to allow them the opportunity to not only be educated on the matter, but to be able to participate in this change. And I would like feedback from my colleagues as well as what could action steps be moving forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What we have in place right now are steps that can be taken. There are several different procedures. It's just a matter of understanding and being knowledgeable of the various steps that are taken. So what has happened here recently is a method that can be utilized for this particular purpose. And one of the things that happens for us as elected officials in these positions via district, they count on you as the district commissioner to have the ability and take that initiative to find out and learn exactly what is going on. Also, when you talk about the citizens being involved, there's a reason why you have elected officials to be able to handle this sort of thing, and then understand that the citizens will get an opportunity to speak to whether or not they want to have whatever change that is being presented. So it's a logical order that happens where a change has been presented, and then your citizens will have an opportunity to vote on that change, whether you, in this particular case, whether you want the mayor to have a vote or whether you don't. It doesn't really take a whole lot of discussion in terms of that matter. And then, of course, we always have, for those of us that have our district breakfasts and things like this, we bring those things to the forefront to let them know exactly what is going on, perhaps what your feelings are, perhaps what their feelings are. But at the very core of this, we've got to understand that the citizens will absolutely get an opportunity to weigh in. There's nothing done that is usurping them from this process. And they have that autonomy and authority to say yes or to say no. And if they say yes, that kind of majority rules. If they say no, majority rules, and we continue to operate like we operate. There's certainly nothing wrong with having these types of discussions. Carl Vinson has had discussions with us on a number of occasions in terms of our government and what their thoughts were behind that. It's been a little bit, but we have had those types of discussions with them. One thing to note that in 1996, when this charter was put forward, and that was 27 years ago approximately, there has been no changes to that charter at all in 27 years. And we've had hundreds, if not thousands, more changes in the United States Constitution, for that matter, for things that we see as being different. Now, my final point to this is this, or just a statement. Our citizens have complained ad nauseum in terms of the government, how it's ran, the results of it, and so forth, for decades, and certainly since I first came to Augusta in the 1980s. And there's been no change in reference to that from the 96 timeframe. And so we can't continue to do those same things, expect a different result. We have to be ready to kind of think outside the box and do different things that will help move this community forward. I'm certainly not against having any types of discussions. I certainly have them with the people in District 4. Got a town hall coming up in March where I'll talk about this and some other things as well to keep them informed. But they know when they elected me that I'm up here to make decisions, and also it's not always feasible to go directly back and talk to 22,000 people that reside in the district about what's actually going on up here. And so we've got to kind of keep that in mind as well. So really, Madam Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm not on this commission, but I just did want to kind of share that. And do note that we have everything that we do, especially with Carl Vinson Institute and others, there's a cost associated with that. And the fact that we can't, in many cases, get 6 people to agree on anything is kind of the reason why it kind of went the way that it did. Because we can't, there's a lot of stagnation involved, and that really hurts more of the community than it does us as individual commissioners up here. And so hopefully, as we continue down this process, we'll have an opportunity to continue to have these types of discussions, but do understand anything that we have and we include in other entities, those things cost money as well. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to also add to what Commissioner Mason just stated, and it's very, very simple, is that, you know, as elected officials, we have a great responsibility to make sure that our constituents know exactly what's going on, and that they know it in a truthful manner and a transparent manner. You know, I had a constituent call me the other day and say, you know, why doesn't the commission get along? Why is it that y'all just can't stand each other? And, you know, I asked myself, you know, that's just not true. We do get along. But then when I see commissioners on TV saying, we don't get along, we don't like it, you know, la da 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 da, we add to the narrative. When I hear people on radio shows saying, oh, this side and that side, and, you know, we got to do this, we have to do we're adding to the negative narrative. Not one time have I ever had a constituent call me and say, hey, you know, Commissioner, I think to move the city forward, y'all need to change that charter. Never heard it. But I have heard them call me and say, you know, we need to tear down some blighted properties. I've heard them say we need to make sure the trash gets picked up on time. I have heard them say we need to make sure that, you know, grass is cut on time. I just left a 71-year-old lady's house this morning in East Augusta talking about how hard it is for her to get a call through 311. One extra vote won't change that. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to the mayor having a vote or not, because quite frankly, this conversation isn't really about whether the mayor gets a vote or not. Well, this conversation is absolutely. But at the end of the day, I believe that the larger conversation is how does the commission get out of its own way? How do we tell the actual story? How do we be truthful in telling what's going on and not furthering some narrative that will further a political agenda? And so when we're hearing stories about bills being dropped and resolutions being made and why wasn't this commissioner called and why was that commissioner called, keep in mind that someone is still living up under a bridge. That some kids, you know, got shot the other day. That we're still dealing with the same old craziness that we always deal with because politics gets in the way. We're where we are with this conversation because of politics. And I'm gonna be real with you. We're not gonna get outside of these woods unless the commission makes a decision to get outside of it. So I agree with what Ms. Pulliam is suggesting, that we need to make sure that we are looking at our government. From what I understand, every administration since the charter was proposed tried to do this. Perhaps some of the commissioners up here now were here when former mayors tried to do it. And news reports came out. They were against Blue Ribbon. They were against giving administrative power. They were against giving the mayor a vote. They were against giving the mayor a veto. Where are we going and what are we doing? I think we're throwing spaghetti at the wall just to try to figure out what's going to stick instead of sticking to the real issues. If we want to figure out how to clean Augusta up, let's clean Augusta up. If we want to clear up blight, let's clear up blight. If we want to pave one side of Laney Walker to the other, let's pave one side of Laney Walker to the other. But all this political back and forth, not even 60 to 90 days into the new year, is disappointing. And I hope that we'll switch gears and move forward as a community, because certainly we're better than this. Now, let's have a conversation about how to move our city forward, but not in such a political manner to where no one hears each other. And I think that is the larger concept here. And Madam Chair, that's all I have. Thank you.
Is that a motion to move it forward to full commission?
I would take it as information.
Motion to receive
Motion
as
to
information.
receive as information.
Second.
And let me just say, I have been in talk with several counties all over the United States about charter changes, and they have been done in a very civilized manner without splitting votes, splitting the commission, splitting different communities. And I think Augusta is bigger than that, and I think we can do that as well. So I look forward to a discussion. I have spoke with Commissioner Larry Johnson in DeKalb County. They have something going on right now. They didn't involve did not involve Carl Vinson Institute, but I think we can convene a blue panel ribbon committee and do the same thing like we did with the non-discrimination ordinance, and have people from different counties who have experienced something like this to come forward and give us ideas. So with that, we'll vote in Ms. Bonner to receive as information.
Yes, ma'am. Unanimous.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I think that's conclude administrative service.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right, engineering services will come to order quickly. Are there any additions or deletions to the engineering services, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
Hearing no additions or deletions, I will offer up a consent agenda that will consist of items 2, Where are we? What did I say? 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
So moved.
Yes, just a second, Madam Administrator.
Commissioner Mason, I would ask that you delete item number 3.
Oh, yes. Item number 3, Madam Clerk, we do want to delete item number 3. That can be handled in a different manner. And so we've got a motion.
And a second.
And a second.
I believe that was Mr. Garrett and Ms. Scott.
Miss McKnight. Miss McKnight. Motion and a second. Commissioners will vote by the normal sign. Mr. Garrett? Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's go ahead from the top.
That leaves item 4, sir.
Number 1.
1. Oh, presentation by Mr. Lenny Burt regarding wildlife protection on Riverwatch Parkway.
Yes, sir. You can come up to the mic. You can state your name and address for the record, home address.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. My name's Lenny Burt. I live at 113 East Arlington Heights in North Augusta, and it's good to be with you this afternoon and talk about Riverwatch Parkway. And I have a presentation, and I have a remote, so we'll see. I'd like to recognize y'all's dedication, too. The weather is great outside today, in case you
perhaps you should have held on to that for a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I realize that. All right, great. Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready. I'm with Friends of the Rapids. This is a group that's focused in on conservation of the Savannah River shoals and any issues related to the river. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time with y'all today talking about Riverwatch Parkway and a challenge I think that we have down there related to our wildlife. So this is just a view of the parkway on a beautiful day, and of course you have our median here with the lights, and it's a great gateway into downtown and out towards I-20. The issue is it's a barrier to small animals, and they're having a really hard time trying to traverse the roadway because of the median that's in place. Now, specifically talking about the section of Riverwatch adjacent to the river, and if you look on here, you'll see that I've added some red lines in here downtown and also up to Topgolf Way. And the road basically runs parallel to the river. It crosses over the canal, but you'll notice a lot of wetlands in here. You see Lake Olmsted, you see the brick ponds where they've been working in the river. So you have these areas where animals are trying to get from one habitat to another, and they're running into this median and they can't get across. And we're having a lot of mortality out there. Now, the next few slides are a little bit graphic. I'm not going to linger on them, but I just want to show y'all just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Most of these pictures were taken in one day. Just kind of keep that in mind. Here we have some turtles that didn't make it. We have some mammals, raccoon. And then here you actually have a river otter and a raptor of some type. So there's a lot of mortality, but this is also presenting some safety hazards to people driving on the roads, because you'll see an animal out there and most people try to swerve, maybe have nowhere to go. I got a report one evening of an alligator out there, and you can just imagine if you were driving down Riverwatch and there was an alligator there in the road. So if you look at the median and the barrier that's there, if it were scaled up to human size, it would be a wall basically a third the size of the Lamar building stretching from here to Columbia, South Carolina, for animals. You know, if you were the size of a turtle, let's say, that's how large it would be. It's about 3.5 miles between downtown Augusta and River Shoals or Topgolf Way. And then we also have multiple bridges located within this section of road. I want to talk a little bit about what some other communities have done. I don't know that this is the right fit for Augusta or Riverwatch per se, but I'm just putting it out there for information. Down at St. Simon's, they had an issue with turtles, some of the sea turtles and terrapins there. They actually instituted a barrier that has some openings in it that the animals can use to get across. And then I'm going to take you way up north to Wisconsin, where they had a similar situation, and they instituted some tunnels underneath the roads that animals could use to cross without getting hit by vehicles. And if you look here on the next slide, they put a camera up and they got some wildlife there. This kind of goes into the idea of using some of our bridges that are there as passageways for animals, trying to keep them out of the roadway. So what am I coming to you today to ask for and suggest as next steps? I've spoken to Georgia DOT about this situation on numerous occasions, and they've indicated to me that they actually have funding available for situations like this for communities in Georgia that can be accessed for studies. But the communities have to approach Georgia DOT and say, hey, we'd like to look at this. And they would like to gather some more data in on what the situation is. So I wanted to make y'all aware of this and also make you, cognizant of the fact that, we could move forward with a study and like to see if y'all would like to participate in that. And I'd be happy to help. However, once we collect the data, we would present that information to DOT and to Augusta Richmond County.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burt.
And thank you for listening to me.
Yes, let's go to our District 7 Commissioner Franton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Burt, for being here. You and I have exchanged emails a few times. I'd like to actually call up Mr. Ushery, who's got an update. When you reached out to me last week, he reached back out to GDOT and hopefully has another update here.
All right, Mr. John Ushery, please come up to the microphone there. You know the routine.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. How is everybody? I'd like to thank the citizens for bringing this to our attention. I did, when I received this, I think as we all know, Riverwatch Parkway is State Route 104. So any changes or anything that would happen would have to be approved and potentially even be funded by the state. So I did forward this to the local district. We're in GDOT District 2. So I sent it on the day that Commissioner Franham had got it to me. I have not yet heard back from them. I did not know about the money for a study, but that's definitely something that I can follow up with GDOT on. And if there is money available for a study, then we'd be happy to participate in that sort of adventure.
Mr. Franham, did you have it?
No, I just wanted to.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Mr. Burt, have you've had any direct communications with Mr. Ushery there in terms of your ask and the next steps?
We may have exchanged some emails. I've been copied on some emails, but I'll definitely speak with him, after the meeting and see what.
Okay, I think that would be a good idea. You all speak to each other, kind of exchange numbers if you haven't done so already. Obviously, we're willing to do what we can in terms of this and try to figure out what it is that we can do. So I would entertain either a motion to receive this information or, yes?
Motion to receive this information.
All right, we've got a motion. Is there a second? Second. Got a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, commissioners will go ahead and vote by the normal sign. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Burt.
Thank you.
Is there another?
Item 4, sir.
Oh, yeah. What is this? Item 4.
Is to consider a resolution regarding hunting around the Finney Swamp Nature Park and the constructed wetlands.
Okay, and please come on up, state your name and all the good stuff.
Alan Saxon, I'm Assistant Director for Facility Operations.
Yes, Alan.
Utilities. Yeah, this item, what happened was we had an incident where there were some guys that were being real creative about how they were hunting, and they got onto the property of the constructed wetland and the Finney Swamp Nature Park, and were shooting ducks. And so once that was discovered, we contacted DNR. DNR came in and actually caught the guys doing it. And they came to us with this form, and they said, we need you to fill out this form because this tells us that if you leave it all blank, that tells us nobody has been approved to work on to hunt on this property. Obviously, when they asked the people, do you have permission to be here, they said yes. So they had no way to refute that. So they asked us if we would give them a list of anybody who is approved to hunt on that property. And you see the list is blank, and they said you can send us a blank form, and we know that nobody's approved to hunt on that property. So that's the whole reason for doing this, so that if somebody is hunting illegally on the property, that DNR can actually make a case against them.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Garrett.
Alan, is there a specific way that you want this motion stated in order for us to be able to get, move this forward?
I think really all it is to, we need to be able to execute this form that is in here and have it submitted to a DNR so that, that gives them everything they need. We just need to get it a signed agreement.
So was a motion to, what's the form number? Is there
To approve the resolution.
Oh, okay.
That is-
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the resolution as stated.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Yes, Mayor Johnson.
How in what proximity is this land close to the WMA site that's near Finney Swamp where hunting is allowed? Is it in close proximity?
They are adjacent somewhere back in the swamp, but they're not. It's not the same property.
It's not the same property. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, vote by the usual sign.
Mr. Lewis
Mr. Lewis.
here?
Oh, he's not there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. That motion carries with Mr. Lewis out.
Next agenda item, Madam Clerk.
No, sir.
This meeting stands adjourned.
Okay.